There was a lot of sadness because I just saw this kid that just had such joy, and all these memories flooded back of these times where, I used to, and I mean, I still do, but like sitting like this, something as simple as like crossing your legs this way.
Right.
I remember being told, men don't do that.
Okay.
Men sit like this. And I remember being told, I talk too fast. You need to talk slower.
Right.
People that have important things to say, talk slow. And all these things that like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's so silly to care about that.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Hi, Kirstie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on She Comes with Baggage. I see you at every event, every influencer meet and greet, we met at the Dua Lipa concert, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, but this is our first time actually.
This is like we said, because we were in each other's orbit. We said hello. We said, how are you? But those events move so fast. Too.
Especially the Dua Lipa one, because I was like from this distance to her, and it was insane. She like grabbed
crazy.
my phone from my hand, and I haven't washed it since. You
can't.
You can't.
You can't.
I sleep next to it. Like I spoon my phone.
I need a Dua Lipa osmosis. I need to like... Give me some of her power.
And we were just talking too about how she's a pop star. Like that is something I definitely want to get into with you, because I know this is something that you're also stepping into. But before we go into it, I would love to learn about what childhood was like for you. Where are you from and where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of Cincinnati, 40 minutes or so outside of the city.
Okay.
And it was like very like kind of white picket fence kind of life. It was American high school kind of vibes. I've always been a bit of a weirdo. So like a UFO dropped you in the wrong area.
Right.
You're like, I think there's somewhere out there for me. I just don't know if this is
I love that
it.
you said UFO, because usually, when you see like the baby thing, it's like the crane that drops the baby.
Yeah.
But you're like UFO. I'm an alien.
Well...
That's amazing. Yeah. But
crazy,
so then when did you move? Because we just found out that you actually went to university at Belmont.
Yes.
Right. And I'm from Tennessee, so we could have crossed paths.
We could have crossed. We have the Tennessee connection.
We do.
So I grew up in Cincinnati, and I was actually not involved in like music or entertainment or anything until like high school. One of my friends was like, you should join the choir, like the after school choir. And I was like, I mean, if you want me to do it, I guess I could. But I was like just begging that somebody would ask me to do it.
Like twist my arm.
Yeah, I was like, so that's when I started singing. So I was I was 16, which is like really late for like the music. Most people like are piano prodigies at 4. And, And my family isn't musical at all. So that was like, but I always like love, like my mom tells the story of I had a VHS that was like Britney Spears and NSYNC on tour together. And it was like the behind the scenes, and I would just watch it on a loop when I was like 4. I was like so enamored by the staging and the pop star of it all. So there was always this draw to it for me for entertaining and having that spark.
Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother, yeah.
Did you ever do, because I have 2 sisters, and we would put on entire performances for my parents, and we'd be like, watch us do this. And we're like, my poor parents' like eyes are burning out. They're like, did you remember ever having like a memories of doing all these performances and stuff?
Yeah, it was really fun, because my last single, Postcards, that I put out in February, that was really like a song that I wrote with a good friend of mine, Holly Anna. And it was like kind of a love letter back to yourself, and kind of forgiving yourself for the times that you took yourself too seriously, kind of just reminiscing about who you thought you would become, and perhaps even like what felt impossible at that time, and then where you are now. And so for the music video, I went home and I converted all of our family tapes. They were on high 8, which is the worst possible thing they could have been on, because VHS is pretty doable. Yeah. Obviously, digital would have been
it's simple,
amazing. But this was like, I had to buy a Sony camera that could convert the tapes.
Wow.
It was like a whole process to do. But I'm so glad I did it. And so to look back on those and watch and see, I was always like, whenever the camera was out, I was like, is that a camera?
It's kind of cool, because when you go back and look at those old childhood memories too, it kind of reminds you that this has always been you. Do you know what I mean? And you've like predestined to kind of go through this route, which is really cool. And I'm sure seeing those old tapes was just something very nostalgic for you as well.
Yeah, it was really healing, honestly, because the whole EP that I put out first, which was named after the song Postcards, the first 5 songs are kind of, I was always very imaginative, and I think that was partially because of where I grew up. I didn't always feel like I belonged, so I found a place in my head where I did belong.
Yeah.
And that was always my way of dealing with it, was like creating these like fantastical kind of stories, you know, out of simple problems that I might have. And so the first 5 songs are kind of that, and then the last one we kind of come back to reality.
I love that it's
And
a musical journey as well.
Yeah,
for you.
I'm always thinking way too much about the architecture of it all.
I think that that's what makes it so beautiful, though. I think it's just really cool because you can tell that you have that creative input on every aspect of your work, and I can't wait to definitely talk about the music as well. I would love to talk to you about your childhood, and I know you had mentioned when we had our one-on-one with that you were more effeminate whenever you were younger.
Totally.
What was that like navigating for you, and did you ever have any backlash or pushback from that?
Yeah, you know, and I think that was part of the thing too, watching those videos back, and like you're saying, like you see the things of you that haven't changed and the things that were kind of always there. And it was very healing to watch those videos. And I think there was a lot of sadness because I just saw this kid that just had such joy and, you know, was so happy and just happy to be a part of things. And all these memories flooded back of these times where, you know, I used to, and I mean, I still do, but like sitting like this, something as simple as like crossing your legs this way.
Right.
I remember being told, men don't do that. Men sit like this.
Right.
And all these things that like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's so silly to care about that.
Right.
You know, to think that and I remember being told I talk too fast. You need to talk slower.
Right.
People that have important things to say talk slow.
Yeah.
And I think where I grew up was just very homogenous in its ideals. And if you were a part of that, that was great for you. If you weren't, then you were going to hear about it.
Right.
And so just little things like that. And I think watching those videos back and seeing that kid, and I just can't imagine if I met, you know, I have friends with nieces and nephews and kids, and meeting their kids and thinking, you know, they have such joy in them. And the thing I'm going to say to them is, you shouldn't sit like that.
Yeah,
Boys
absolutely.
don't do that.
No,
you know?
It's so true.
It comes from such a weird place.
It does. And, you know, I actually just kind of went down this same path that you did recently, in a way. My sister just did the whole VHS to digital to print, and she sent me a link with all of our old childhood videos. And I'm talking like 6 years worth of videos from like newborn to 6 years old of me, and things that I had lost. I think I hadn't seen childhood me in, I don't know, 20 years. Like I only have a couple photos, and that's something that I just have for myself. But this was the first time I've seen myself on video in a very long time. And exactly what you're saying right now, I have all these memories now of these videos of me just dancing and being super playful and like just in my most joyous self. And it's just interesting how, in a way, like you grow up and then people tell you to be a certain way or act a certain way, or you're being too much. You have to stop doing this, stop doing that. Because I had it in reverse, where I was more tomboy and I wanted to play sports with the boys and play in the mud and play with the G.I. Joes and all of that. And, you know, a lot of times I would hear, my last name is Pike, so people would be like, Kirstie Pike the Dyke, and I was just like, I don't know what these words mean. I'm just being myself. And so it makes you start to internalize, wait, what is wrong with me? And then when you look back on these videos now after all these years, you're like, nothing was wrong with you. You were just who you needed to be. And I don't know. I think that's what's so special about going back and seeing all those old home videos too. And whenever you were being told you're talking too loud or you're being too much, how was that making you feel in that moment? And is that something that you're constantly trying to reinvent now?
I think when I was a kid, you know, you don't have any outside, you know, you listen to your parents, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not getting, and I think media is a little bit better now where it's decentralized, so people are getting a lot of different ideas, you know, even at a younger age, for better or for worse sometimes. But I think that I kind of knew, I had a sense that like, I just got to get through this. Like, these people are silly. And I'm not going to lose these parts of myself, but I'm going to play the part I need to play to make it through this.
That's so good.
But it's sad because I think, you know, a couple years ago, I started to unpack it a lot more. And I realized, like, I've been playing a character for so long that I don't even know if I know who's underneath the character.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And
it's wow. Okay. Yeah. That's actually such a mind.
Yeah.
Layers of, it's like Inception, layers of Inception.
One of my friends, Holly, who I wrote postcards with, we talk all the time, and she told me about this book she was reading. But it was about elephants and how you can, when an elephant's a baby, if you like tie, you tie them to like a spike in the ground and they're not strong enough to pull it out. When they're older, you can do the same thing to them and they're plenty strong enough to pull the spike out, but they won't try because they learned when they were little, like, I can't do that. And so it's so interesting to me to kind of take these things that I was told when I was really little, and I was like, okay, this is, I'm too much, or I'm, I shouldn't cross my legs when I sit. Even this felt weird. Yeah. I was like, why am I feeling weird about sitting like this right now? And like, it's kind of programmed into you. Yeah. And to unpack that and relearn these kind of things and take the source of where they came from and say, is that serve me anymore or not? Right. It's kind of something I've been doing in the past couple years.
And I love that too, because, something that I've realized a lot on this podcast is there's so many people that have gone through the exact same thing. Yeah. And it's not even just of people of certain communities or not. It's every community across the board being told that you have to act and be a certain way from children, from being young, and how that affects you. Right. And how that kind of manifests itself over the next couple of years, it's very fascinating to hear how almost every single person that comes on the show has that same connection in a way, and also how they've used that as a tool to then build the creative, mindset that they have now.
I do think it's like part of it. And part of it comes from a lot of different places with music and entertainment and everything I've done. But part of like telling yourself like, no, this is who I am and what I'm going to do. Yeah. It makes you believe in yourself in a way that like I'm not happy I had to go through, being told you shouldn't be this way or that way or whatever. But doubling down on myself, I think, has served me a lot in creative decisions and just having the strength to be like, and the courage to say like, I'm going to do this. Right.
Well, I think in a way it's exactly what you said. If that many people, I mean, I'm not encouraging to bully children, but like if that many people didn't tell me you can't do this, you can't do that, stop doing this, stop doing that. And then my inner self always just being like, but no, this is me. I want to do this. This brings me joy. Right. And it wasn't always that easy, but I feel like now it's kind of built that resilience. And I wish that I didn't have to go through all of that to have the resilience that I have. But I guess there is like a silver lining that I was saying before, that I have like toxic positivity. I have toxic positivity where I'm like, where's the silver lining? There's got to be one. Yeah. So I guess that is like my silver lining behind all of it, that like every little comment that I went through is like, and I would imagine it's the same, where you've now used that to kind of better yourself and challenge yourself in a beautiful way. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of crazy though. I would love to ask you about spirituality and what is your connection to a higher power, and if that's something that you bring into your creative process as well.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I read this book called Big Magic. Yep. And that was really interesting to me, especially with creativity, and kind of I view it in a very spiritual way, in the sense that I think when I started posting on TikTok in 2020, right when the pandemic happened, because I was working at a restaurant. The restaurant closed. I was like, well, everybody's talking about TikTok. I came to LA to do something entertainment, and I'm not. Okay. So it's kind of now or never. Like, you have all the time in the world. It's this and Animal Crossing. Right. So I started posting like once a day, and pretty immediately I had, a really good response, it was kind of a boom, but it was so cool to like see these numbers and just to put something creative out every day and see this great response, which usually entertainers don't get. If you make a song, we'll write them months in advance and you record them. It's just this whole long process. But you make something one day, you post it, you get immediate feedback, which is such a magic. Yeah. But I think there were days it was going, and then it was like, ooh, that video didn't do well. That video didn't do well. Yeah. And it felt like I had like held on to this thing, and then it just slipped through my fingers. Okay, it was like, oh, I can turn this into this. I could do this with social media. I could do this. And it was like, no, I'm losing it. And now I've been doing it. It's 2020. Like I've been doing it over 5 years. Okay, so now it's like, I'm much more like it ebbs and it flows. It's okay. Yes. But I think with creativity, the framing in that book that I think is so great is that it's not like it kind of looks at creativity as more of an external factor, and you're kind of a vessel that can translate creativity into something. Okay. And, ideas come to you. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'm like, I don't know where these ideas come from. They just pop in. It's like, knock, knock.
No, literally, that's what happened with this podcast. Yeah. I woke up one day, I was like, I think I want to have a podcast. And then a month later, I was like, I just interviewed someone. and now I'm here doing it. And it's exactly what you said. It's just an idea that pops up, and I can't stop
she calls them like little fairies. Like they just like float in your head, and then you can take the idea or you can let the idea go. Okay. And I think I've learned that you really have to create the space for creativity to come into your life.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in a really stressful environment, if you're unhappy, if you just don't like where you live or who you live with, or all these kind of things, like that really bogs it down. So it's almost like I have to take care of myself so that the creativity will come sometimes.
Wait, I think that's really a beautiful way of thinking about it too, because I think I actually have that book,
it's
Big Magic.
One,
it's a good one. And even the cover itself is really pretty. And I think that it's really cool too, that's what, I mean, I'm very spiritual as a person too, because I do think that it has a lot of like internalized and externalized things to it where, you know, something that is tangible is like, okay, if I put out love, compassion, positivity, and I'm like attracting that law of attraction, I feel like it also bounces back where it's like, okay, here's more creative ideas, here's more creative outlets, here's more opportunities that open up the door. But I don't know if that's the same, but it sounds like it's very similar in that regard.
Especially as more and more people are getting into social media, it's becoming easier to do. The audience, what they want really starts to seep into your life, and you kind of have to be cognizant of that. Otherwise, you know, it can be not a good thing. And we were talking a little bit before about like rage bait content. And I think when you put that kind of content out and then you attract a lot of negative comments, angry comments, passionate people, I think it really does affect, you know, your life. And you can't just log out the way people think that you can.
I fully agree with you, because a lot of people ask, you know, how do you get into social media? How do you do it? And I'm like, it's a great tool for creating and to be able to connect with people and communities. You just have to be very careful with social media, because I think that if you go into it with the intention of just building fame or just clout or whatever that might be, you might end up making content that is actually more harmful you and your peace. And I think, you know, whenever someone asks me like, was a piece of advice when it comes to content, it's you have to understand what your why is, and what your why is, like what is the bigger purpose as to why you want to create content. Is it because you have these storytelling you know, feelings that you want to get out to someone and help them with their life, or maybe you really want to open the doors for queer people to travel easier, which is what I wanted to do, or just maybe building community, which is all, I mean, there's so many different ways that people can build a why, but I think having that as like your core you know, foundation before starting to create, and that's not even just social media, just in general, like what is your why, it's not only going to keep you from like burning out, but it's also just going to keep you passionate and like staying on the right track, instead of just going like, I really need the numbers, so let me rage bait a bunch of people, because then that sticks with you, you know?
It does, you know, and I think it really can't just be about the numbers or the fame from it, because there's no substance to that. Like there's no substance to the numbers. I think of it as like candy. Like it tastes good. It's nice. Every once in a while you get a banging video. You're like, oh my God, we did it. You know, but like you have to know that is a sugar high.
Right.
You know?
And then you get cavities.
You get cavities. You better watch out. Totally. And you know, if you don't have that why, then, you know, there's videos that I've made that I'm really proud of that maybe didn't perform as well, but I still love that video because I'm like, that's what I wanted to make and I did it. And I know the people that it did reach, it impacted.
I love
even
that.
if it didn't reach, you know, huge numbers.
I love that. And I always think too with social media is like, we think about, okay, let's say if there's 100 people that viewed it, right? In your head, you might be like, oh, that's not as many as what I normally get or whatever. But if 100 people walked up to you right now and they complimented you on your work and they said, they gave you a hug, 100 hugs, sign me up.
Sign me up.
What I mean. I feel like, you know, that right there would just absolutely be so motivating and so inspiring. And then you put 1,000 or 200,000 or 1 million views, 1 million hugs. that'd be the peak of my life.
Oh, wait. My introvert side coming out. Like
you're like, calm down.
Calm down. I'm gonna need iPad time.
But you know, I think that is one thing about social media. You have to remember that you are affecting people and impacting people. And if you don't have a why, it could impact someone in a poor way, or it could be something that's so motivating and helps them change their life in such a beautiful way too. Yeah. So it's very interesting, the whole game of social media.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you on the topic of earlier, whenever, you know, people, let's say someone's tuning in right now and maybe they're being told they're being too much or they're being too loud or you shouldn't dress this way or shouldn't act this way.
Right.
But they're really feeling that is a part of their why and part of their core.
Yeah.
What is something that you would give to them as a piece of advice?
Yeah, you know, and that's something and I'm sure we'll get into Tennessee in a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was something I loved so much about when I moved to LA was I felt like for the first time, like how I'm different wasn't in my face. Like I could go to the grocery store in like a chicken costume and stilettos and nobody would bat an eye. They'd be like, it's just LA.
You've made that up right now as if you've done it. Yeah, not yet.
It hasn't been released,
okay.
But no, I'm just kidding. But like, and so I think I was able to find myself so much more.
Yep.
But I think one thing that I've really taken into consideration is, that's been a great piece of advice, especially because everybody, like when you do music, like everybody loves to have an opinion on it, which is like, great. I'm glad that it's evoking, you're feeling some type of way about it, good or bad. It's meant to provoke. But sometimes it's like, there's just a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
And one thing I got was, I don't take advice from people that I don't want to be like.
Ooh, okay.
So I have people that I look up to, a small collection of people in my life that I'm like, this is who I want to be in 5 years, or this is somebody who just does it right, who I'd love to emulate, who I'd love to be like. Mm-hmm. And unless they're telling me, then I'm not interested.
That's
in
a great
hearing.
way of putting it.
I think when you're just on social media, you're going to get a lot of, hate comments or whatever. And I look at, sometimes I'll peek at the profile and I'm like, okay, first of all, this is a blank profile.
Yeah, it's always a blank profile.
It's always a blank profile. And I'm like, people that I look up to, they don't have time to leave hate comments.
Yeah.
They're busy.
No, it's true.
They're doing things.
It's so true.
If you have time to leave hate comments,
right.
I don't know if you're necessarily someone I want
exactly.
to be like.
Yeah. So there was one quote I saw the other day. It was like a post that pulled up and it was like, I need new haters because all my haters started to like me. And I was like, wait,
they're
actually?
Fans.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, ooh, okay, that's a good way of thinking about it too. Because, oh, sorry, go ahead. You were going to say
I had one today. It's just sometimes you get a notification too, and it's like, why did you do this to me, YouTube? Yeah. Why did you give me this one?
Yeah.
But it was like, you need to stop making music. You made 7 corny songs, blah blah blah, and I'm like, that there's 7 sounds like a fan to me.
That sounds like a fan. Yeah, I'm like the fact that you've counted all 7, and I know they're in your top. Your Spotify Wrapped is going to be all your music.
A hater's just a fan that doesn't believe it yet.
Ooh, wait, that's another quote. That should go on a T-shirt. Oh, that should.
Patent.
Yeah, but I think it's true. A lot of people, you said the word passionate earlier, which I think is a good way of putting it, because sometimes when people leave hate comments, it's coming from a place of passion.
Yeah.
Because an emotion was evoked in them
totally.
through the creativity that you're putting out there,
yeah.
or just being yourself, being authentically you. And a lot of times with hate messages, I tell myself silver lining is that maybe that it's just projecting, and then maybe they're actually seeing something in you that they wish that they could attain 100%. Themselves. So like that sometimes is what I try to tell myself with hate comments.
I just understood what projecting is, because I knew I feel like we've heard of that for a long time, but then like it was explained to me, and I was like, this is blowing my mind, because somebody can never understand actually what you're thinking about them. So like if I'm driving and I'm taking a right turn and I'm not ready, it's like, oh, there's a car. Oh, I could have gone, and I'm thinking, oh my God, the person behind me they're probably so mad at me. They're probably like, oh my God, go already. But that's all in my head.
Yeah.
They could be jamming to the radio.
Right.
Who knows,
Yeah.
but I'm creating the way that they see me.
Yes.
And that's really how I see myself in that moment. I'm embarrassed that it's taking me a long time. It really has nothing to do with them. And so I think that when you get, hate kind of comments, it really doesn't have anything to do with you. It's really how this person thinks that you would see them, or how they see themselves through your eyes.
Wow.
You know?
That's so true.
It has nothing to do with you.
It's so true. And it definitely helps me find a little layer of peace at night, especially because, we all go through the comments, and it's not probably the healthiest thing to do. But I definitely have before, and I read and I'm like, I do have chicken legs.
Oh.
Like, when did they tell me this?
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? And then I'm like, no, this is, maybe they have chicken legs. I just don't know it because they have a faceless profile.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Have you ever gotten one that you're like, wait, they're kind of right though?
Yeah, that's chicken legs. I think one person left that comment 3 years ago, and I've never heard it again, but that one comment has stuck with me. And I was like, good thing baggy jeans are in, because you can't even see them anymore.
Even see.
Right.
I had one that they were like, I was making Crocs, and I had my head down making them, and they're like, I think you're balding. And I was like, I'm not balding. And then I looked, and I was like, oh my God, I'm balding.
No, oh my God.
Now we've chemically taken care of that.
Listen.
But I was like, kind of help me out.
Yeah, you're like, actually, thank you. I give you kudos on that one.
I know, I really
actually have like a spray that I put in my hair where I'm balding, so I'm like, that's all I need. So I want to talk to you about social media in general, because you started with comedy, right? And
Yeah.
I remember when I started following you, you were doing comedy.
Yeah.
And then that transitioned into your music career. What did that transition alone teach you about risks and, transforming your content?
Totally. It was really interesting because I went to a school. I grew up in Cincinnati. I went to a school in Nashville, Tennessee, Belmont University, which is really known for its music and music business programs, among a lot of things. But really, like a lot of people come from out of state specifically for those programs. And it was a nice stepping stone because I think LA would have been, it's so big, it would have been so overwhelming. It was nice to kind of have a foundation. But I was a music business major. So it was always, the plan, was always kind of to get to music.
Okay.
But when I was there, I really saw just the most talented musicians, these incredibly talented, musicians and artists, and they would create these projects and they'd go nowhere. And I'd be like, how is no one listening? I mean, this is so good. How is no one listening to this? And to me in that moment, my brain was like, because I'm always a gamer, it's always game night in this brain. Okay. So I'm always like, how is this, And I was like, there's got to be some other element to it.
Yeah.
And my idea was like, maybe I can get the following, the fan base, before I actually have music for them. Maybe, and I think any artist, you are selling yourself. Charlie XCX did an interview recently with Brat where she was like, my unpopular, or my hot take is that it's not about the music. And then she kind of went into it and explained it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
When I look up Chappell Roan, when I look up Charlie XCX, I want to feel like the party girl when I listen to Brat, and it's with your music and with the branding that goes along with it. It's like, who are you, who are you allowing the audience to be through your work?
Oh, yeah.
And you actually don't necessarily need music at the start to do that, is what I
Interesting,
found. So comedy was really helpful because it was something that didn't cost me any money to do.
Okay.
Where music is so expensive.
Yep.
I could, turn on my phone, put on a green screen, and create a character, and let the audience laugh and be nostalgic and be over the top and kooky. And that was kind of the branding that I created through that comedy content. And it was really just at that point kind of just throwing things at the wall and seeing what would stick.
Okay.
And testing in that way. And then when I started to post on YouTube Shorts, I backlogged all my content from TikTok. It started to do really well. And I saw an audience that was more so there for me than I'd ever felt before. They knew the characters. They wanted another part of this series. They knew.
That's so fun.
Yeah, they knew so much more about me. And that's when I was really like, okay, I think if I put out music, I think I'd have an audience for it.
Okay. Which is kind of cool that you were able to take the characters as well and kind of bring that to life on an even bigger scale.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's kind of how I positioned it too, because I think if your music doesn't go along with the brand you've already established, like the audience feels a little bit of whiplash.
Okay.
They're like, wait, like why is it you and acoustic guitar being so earnest? Like we're used to you being silly and witty and, crazy. I think that's also the music that I like to make and I like to listen to. So I think it helped that is exactly where I wanted to land, was kind of where the comedy was already landing.
Yeah, that's great.
And I was able to use one of my characters, Brace's kid, that was one of my most popular characters, to then start in the first music video. So it got to be this.
That's so cool.
Rather than like begging people like, please listen to this, it was like, this character that you love, I'm giving him this bigger thing.
Yeah. Wait, I love that too, because it's like you were introducing new characters, and every one of those characters is probably who you are on another layer.
100%,
right?
yeah.
Like it's still another layer of getting to know who you are.
Yeah.
And then you're also bringing that layer of you to a life form, essentially through the creativity, through the visual aspect. And then people are like, wait, now the person that I loved on these skits is now doing music and appearing in music videos and things like that. So it kind of gives them that inspiration that layer of you is also part of something that they can feel inspired by too, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, when your song Sugar High blew up, was that exhilarating? Was that terrifying?
Yeah.
And what did you ever feel like you needed to recreate that moment? Because I know we talked about numbers earlier. How did that play out?
I mostly just felt relieved. Like, oh my God.
You're like, it's done.
I never put so much money into like a creative project before. And so I was like, oh my God, it works.
There you go. Yeah.
And a lot of that was, the audience and the community that I don't want to say that, I don't know, to say like, oh, I built this feels, because it was really just me, throwing out a bone and seeing who wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then, just finding all these incredible people that really responded to what I was doing, and we all got to, be a part of it together.
Yeah.
And so it was really leaning, and it was really them, like, making videos with the song and really championing it. You can only, as an artist or as a creative, like, you can really only do so much. You can really only put it out there.
Yeah.
And, I'll promote till till the day's over. Like,
did you hear my song?
Yeah,
Did you see
I will be promoting. I can't. Oh my god, that's my biggest artist pet peeve is when people go like, "Surprise! I have a new song out." Like,
yeah, no, you're good.
sorry, I got so emphatic that I'm breaking the set.
No, you're good.
I'm like, where is the strategy?
Yeah, you're like, I need a marketing breakdown.
Yeah, give it to me.
Right.
You know,
we need a teaser. We need a countdown. We need all of it.
we need everything.
Yeah,
just I'm so inspired. I think by so many artists that have done this, like Charlie XCX with the Brat campaign and the Brat Wall, and Taylor Swift Reputation, wiping her social media. Like, there's an art to the marketing campaign.
That's true.
You know that I love almost as much as the music.
And it's kind of what you said. It's still bringing the audience along with you because they get to be a part of the buildup, right? They kind of get. I never thought about it that way because honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I'm the type of person that's like surprised. Yeah. Because I think that I get so nervous about what the response is gonna be. Yeah. Like even with this podcast, I think you know I did it because I wanted to try something new and I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. But then I was really nervous about what people's responses would be that I didn't even really get a chance to like promote it ahead of time because I was like, oh my God, but what if no one says anything? Right. And then now fast forward, I've been doing this since June and since then I've had such great feedback and I'm like, oh, again, it goes back to the projection of like, I'm too scared to tell people I'm doing this, so I'm not going to promote it, which actually gets people not to know about it, which gives you the results that you were so scared about.
You know?
Yeah,
no,
that's so true. That's so true. Yeah. So now I'm promoting the shit out of it.
Yes! And it's hard. I mean, it's hard too before you
have
have the product out. Especially that was some of the great advice that I got for my first song was like, save a lot of the promotion until after it's out because nobody knows with your first song, nobody knows what you're capable of.
That's true.
And we knew the song was good, so... And you know, for the most part, I had done like a week of teasers, but then it was like once it's out, then you hit the ground running. You don't want to burn yourself out before it's even out.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. I know part of your music videos, you incorporate a lot of LGBTQ plus representation, non-binary representation. What is the driving factor of why you want to make sure that there are diverse characters in your music videos?
Yeah, you know, I think one thing for me is whenever I'm out and, you know, and it's usually kids because I think part of it too is they're just so excited. Yeah. Adults like, oh, I know who that is, but like a kid's like, and it's everyone. Like, it's so cool that my content and my music has just reached so many different people. And I would hate for them to ever watch one of my music videos and not see themselves represented in some way.
Okay, yeah.
But I think with a lot of the LGBT representation, Sugar High, Emily Dower, who's this fantastic actor that was my opposite in the music video, is a non-binary actor, and it just felt right for the character that I was playing, Brace's kid. It was really kind of supposed to be a blank slate for everybody to kind of project their own childhood and to laugh at the silly things that they did. Yeah. And so when we were writing the music video, the storyline, I was like, if Brace's kid has this, because it's like at a summer camp, so it's like, which I think is such a special time because, like, it's kind of the first time a lot of people experience like their parents aren't watching over them, like they get to kind of experience this sliver of adulthood for the first time.
That's true.
And leave a lot of those things we're talking about of being told you need to be this or that way behind. So it was fun to set the setting to be a summer camp, and I think if Brace's kid had this camp crush on like, you know, a boy or a girl, it would have just felt, I think a lot of people would have felt they didn't see themselves in that character anymore.
Okay, interesting,
and I loved, having Emily on set, and who's just a beautiful person, like just so stunning and attractive. I think a lot of times when non-binary people are in, a project, they kind of, their identity is why they're there or what, like, they're always kind of like, oh, it's the kooky character. Like, it's the, the side character. Oh, look, we put a non-binary in this.
Yeah, like a checklist. Kind of. Yeah, right.
And I love that, like, they just got to exist in this music video as the cool kid at camp that everyone wanted to be like at the camp. Yeah. And it didn't really have anything to do with their identity. I think that there's probably a lot of people that, like, saw themselves in that character. Yeah.
I think it's just amazing, though, because, when I was growing up in Tennessee, in the South, in the Bible Belt, it was very difficult for me when I was going through the coming out journey because I had no idea what a queer person was. Right. I had never been around anyone. I had no one in my family that was queer. No one, I didn't know what that was. I just thought that I was this terrible person that you heard about, like when you hear about LGBTQ plus narratives. Story. Exactly. Yeah. And I was always like, I don't think I'm that bad of a person. Like, why is everyone making me feel like that without knowing who I felt like I was? Because, you just internalize it because that's
Right.
what you've heard them talk about others.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I had your music growing up, I would feel a little less alone. So I feel like, seeing the representation that you're putting on screen is just probably helping so many people and so many young adults or, so many young people just going through that process feel like they're not alone in that. And they're seeing themselves represented and in a way where it's like, oh, they are cool and they can find love or they can find friendship or family. And like, I think that's really, really cool. And I just wanted to applaud you for that because I feel like, again, what you just said, it's not seen as much in mainstream media as you would hope that it would be. Right. Without it being like a checklist of what we're seeing. Like,
oh my God, the whole trope of like, we put the first non-binary character and then it's like a 0.2-second clip, It's like, okay, I guess you did.
Yeah.
But,
right.
And I think there in media, there becomes a thing where it's like, if the storyline that character is a part of only centers around their identity and is a tragedy or what, I think it's nice to move past that. And obviously you don't want to erase that history and, you want to make sure that's a part of it too, but also like letting people live beyond their identity, I think is really powerful.
And I wanted to ask you too, because, I know, which I'm just learning now that music was always a part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I had originally thought that comedy would have been the journey and then music kind of escalated from that. But now that I know it's the other way around, do you feel like comedy has kind of given you this extra edge or this extra advantage when it comes to your music where you can better understand like irony or camp or just being overall fun and free in your music?
Yeah, it's so interesting, I think, because a lot of artists struggle with being a great musician, being a great songwriter, and then having to be a content creator on top of it.
Okay.
And I felt really fortunate that I learned the content game kind of ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that it felt very, second nature to create content to promote my music. I think the one thing that I've really run into that's difficult is it's very hard to be earnest online.
Yeah.
And I was always a joke. I think, growing up the way I did, like comedy was always kind of my superpower in that, like, you can't make fun of me if I'm making fun of you first.
Yeah. Beat you to it.
It's like, I'll beat you to it. It's like, there was always a way to put someone in their place with comedy and with being witty.
Yeah.
And, I think that I was able to translate that in social media in a lot of ways. But it's hard with music because when you're saying, listen to my song, please.
Yeah.
Or like, I made this and I'm really proud of it. Like, you almost have to act like, I made this, and like, if you want to listen to it, that's cool. How can I be cool about this thing I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on?
It's kind of cool, but please
But
listen to it.
Please, So that's kind of and I've tried to find different ways to do that and be really creative about it and not feel like I'm giving people homework. When I'm promoting music and make it really fun and make it something people want to be a part of. And I've done I do a pair of Crocs for every song. For the first EP, I was looking for a Squishmallow that went along with every song.
Oh, that's so cool.
There were like fun ways to promote the song that made people excited for the promotion.
Yeah. Which I also just think is really creative in itself. Like you just said with the marketing and stuff is just so, I don't know, it's so innovative because I think, you're taking ideas, maybe not ideas, but inspiration from like Taylor Swift who does these little Easter eggs everywhere and how that gets people excited to like be a part of it. I don't know.
It's like a fun game to be,
What would be the impact that you would hope to leave behind when it comes to your music?
Yeah, I think... One, I just think it's fun. Like, just have fun.
Yeah.
I think that we're coming back a little bit to fun music, but I think there was a there was a singer-songwriter epidemic for a while. Love a singer-songwriter, but whisper pop really had us by the neck. And I think it's fun to be fun and it's fun to dance and I love bringing that back. And yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think it's just fun and it doesn't need to take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
While you can still be like kind of thought out and kind of tell a story.
True.
And I think that storytelling has always been kind of what I found to be my superpower.
Yeah.
And
I
so
love that.
I love to kind of share, a story and hopefully people feel seen in that.
No, I love that. And what is your experience with when it comes to like an imposter syndrome? Have you ever had that feeling? Because I know a lot of people who are putting themselves out there, or maybe they want to, and they just feel that maybe they don't have that capability, but you really do. You actually, every single person has that inside of them, I think. But it's that imposter syndrome that kind of holds them back. Do you ever experience that?
No. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Actually, not at all. No, actually,
I'm
you're
really
the
good at
imposter.
No, I
so
think
funny.
there's
That's so
definitely
funny.
my friend and I will say, like, it's the day I feel like a turtle without a shell. You know,
Right, yeah, that's
it's
so
like the
funny.
comments, they hit so much harder.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that, I guess this is kind of along the similar line, but there was one day back when I was solely focused on comedy content, I made a video about Zoo Books, which was like the magazine.
Yeah.
It was like the big commercial that would always come on.
Yeah.
And it was just like a joke about things that they would try to sell you on TV, these ads that we always used to see. And I made a joke about it. And there was this big creator that took he screen recorded my video, took all the jokes out, and just made it look like I was criticizing Zoo Books.
Oh.
And then like stitched it and was kind of like, oh, I love Zoo Book, and had all his like Zoo Books behind him. And I got so many comments and I've never like gotten so much flack before about something so nonsensical. You know, I was like,
don't come for the Zoo Books.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I mean, people were stitching it and being like, I can't believe you would say this and blah, blah, blah. And Zoo Books changed my life. And like, I was in a deep depression and Zoo Books are what got me out of it. And I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And that day I was in a tennis league and I had a match. And so I went to the match and I logged off. And like when we were on the court, I totally forgot about the whole thing.
Okay.
And it felt like this world ending. It was like, it could all be over,
Yeah.
you know, when I was in the online world. And then as soon as I like stepped out and I was like, oh, this isn't, you know,
Yeah.
it's not
I'm
what
still here.
Yeah. And it really made me realize that there was a life outside of all of it.
Yeah.
And I think that with imposter syndrome, I think that, you know, one, looking back to the things that you've done before and being proud of yourself and saying like, I didn't think I could do this, but I did it.
Yeah.
I think it gets, the more that you do it, it's kind of fake it till you make it. It gets easier every time, you know?
No, I completely
and just
agree.
Leaning on those people that you know who you are.
I also agree with you. It's like, it's one of those things where imposter syndrome is one of those things where if you like tell yourself, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to fake it till I make it. Eventually you make it and you're not faking it anymore.
You're not faking it anymore.
And next thing you know, you're like, oh, and people are asking you, how'd you do it? You're like, I faked it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then now I'm here.
Totally.
Which is kind of cool. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the whole idea of cringe. Like people are like, oh, it's so cringe. It's so cringe. It's so cringe.
God.
And I'm like, they're going to tell you you're cringe until you're successful.
Right.
And then when you are successful, that's when they're going to ask you how you did it.
Exactly.
It's the same people who always say that. And again, it goes back to the projection thing. It's like a lot of times people want to put themselves out there, but it feels scary.
Right.
And it's rightfully scary. It is. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not scary even for me who's been doing this for 6-7 years.
Right.
Content in general.
Yeah.
So I love that answer and being able to put yourself out there.
There was one I read that was like embarrassment is the cost of success.
Okay.
You know, which I was like, oh, so.
Wait, that's a good one. I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about mental health because being a public figure, being someone who's a criticizer of Zoo Books.
Sure. My resume here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I hate them.
No, so being a public figure and being someone who's aligned and also putting yourself into the characters that you put out there, how do you protect yourself in the sense of like keeping a part of you private, but then also being able to show yourself in your characters as well?
Yeah. You know, I think when I was especially doing characters, it was helpful because if they didn't like the character, well, they just don't like the character.
Yeah,
you know,
fair.
I could kind of externalize like what they didn't like. And then when I started to post more earnestly as myself, then it was like, oh, am I ready for this?
Yeah.
You know? But I think it just goes back to like knowing who you are and I think a lot of that comes from having a really solid foundation of, you know, people in your life that you know care about you and know you. And it's weird now to like sometimes meet new people because like it feels like you're following or your work is like this elephant in the room and sometimes it's like no, like just know me.
Yeah. No, that's how I feel
that's
sometimes.
Just what I do.
In Los Angeles, particularly sometimes I'll like be like, can we just be friends first and then we'll talk about like the work later.
Oh, but I'm never offering what I do for work.
Okay, good. Because I for me, I'm like, I want to get to know each other. Let's like, I'd rather you know about my favorite color and like what I like to do for fun.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about the platform or the social media or anything like that because I think that's and again, that kind of goes back to your why because again, that's not the idea for it, right? But
no, when I meet someone, it's always like, are you watching any cool shows? You're reading any good books? Like I'm never the one to say, what do you do for work?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I think that's how you can connect with people on a deeper level as well. Like I don't know, for me, finding friendships now, it kind of feels like dating where you're like, we need to get together. We need to enjoy each other's company. I need to know you on a deeper level. Do we have similar ideals, similar moral systems? You know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh, in my 30s, I feel like trying to make friends is so different now.
Oh my God,
you know
it's
what I
so
mean?
different.
It's so different.
College, it was so easy. It was like everybody lives right here. Of course, we're all gonna be friends.
Right. And now I'm like, what do you mean I have to make advanced plans and then I have
Oh
to
my
not
God.
bail on it?
Well, I'm free in 2 weeks. Like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Exactly.
It's wild.
Well, with performing
Mm-hmm.
and putting yourself out there and kind of be like stage presence in a way. How do you protect your mental peace with that and going into it and being like, I'm ready for this. I got this no matter what.
Yeah.
Kind of just preparing yourself through that journey.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the best person to say because it kind of was second nature to
Yeah,
me. Like
okay, that's
you know,
good.
I'm excited to to do live shows and live performances, and I think that'll be its own beast.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot of live streaming, and sometimes you'll just get crazy comments,
Yeah.
and you're like, it's the worst when there's not enough comments going that they know that you read it, or they can see it on your face that you read
Like-
whatever crazy thing. Usually, I just don't respond because I think when
Yeah.
you give that time, it just brings more.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I just find this foundation of like I'm not gonna let it bother me.
Yeah.
And then I keep on going.
And you just keep passing through it.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I think the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
Especially
I
in the
fully agree.
beginning, there was times where I felt like, oh, I got criticized for something and it felt
Yeah.
world shattering.
Yeah.
And then-
If someone was looking to go into the music industry or the creative industries,
Yeah.
and they're kind of looking for that extra layer of encouragement, what would you give them as a
Yeah.
piece of advice?
Oh my gosh, I think the thing that I run into with a lot of people that want to get into it is they do so much time planning and not enough time making.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, "Oh, I need this certain equipment, or I need a
Yep.
good camera." You don't.
Yeah.
You got a phone, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And I think it's this way to kind of externalize blame, where it's like, "Well, I just don't have the right equipment. I can't do this yet."
Right.
And you just got to put yourself out there and go for it, and
Yeah.
you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
You're gonna fail 1,000 times before you get one right, and
It's so true.
that's kind of the cost of it. And you will find it. Like, I'll have friends that are like, "Oh, I want to get into social media," and I'm like, "Well, if you have 20 videos, we can sit here and we can say this one did
Yep.
well. Why did it do well?"
Yep.
I think everybody has kind of their own formula. Everybody's looking for like the secret. Like,
Yeah.
how do you what
Yeah.
what works on social media? And it's like it's really what works for you.
Yeah.
What do you have inside that people are going to respond to?
Yep.
And how do we curate that for a social media presence? Of
I agree.
course.
Yeah.
But you have a formula, and we have to unpack that before we can get into posting times or
Yep.
thumbnails and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
No, fully, because I think that, if you're going into it being like, I want to create, I see these things online where it's like, you have to make 20 TikToks a day and posting like at 6 a.m.,
Oh my
8
God.
a.m., 12. And I'm like, girl, like no one has time for that. I am proud of myself if I get one up a day. Okay?
100%.
But you know what? I think that's the thing with social media too, is just life in general with projects, is every single person's schedule and life is so different, right? And so I can't tell someone who has a 9 to 5 who's working and then maybe has kids or maybe has to take care of their parents or whatever that might look
Yeah.
like, to go and post 28 times a day. And it doesn't always work that way. Just
Right.
because you're posting 20 times a day,
Right.
if the quality isn't the right way. And when I say
Yeah.
quality, I don't mean 4K image. I
No.
mean like truly something
give
that
something of
resonates.
value. Yeah.
Exactly. So I do agree with you fully. You have to figure out what works best for you first and then
Yeah.
kind of build it out from there. But
Right.
I don't
One of
know.
my friends said she would like coach people, and she talked about content needs to educate, entertain, or inspire.
Yeah.
And I was and if it can do more than that, even better.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good jumping off point, because
Yeah.
it's like, what can I bring that educates someone, that teaches someone, or if it's not necessarily like a skill, but it's like something about yourself.
Yeah.
What have I learned that I can share?
Right.
Or how can I entertain you, or how can I inspire you? I think it's a great place to start.
No, I love that. And have you ever had an experience with, like, let's say, a crash out, or like maybe anxiety or anything like that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I was in college, I had a really bad period where I was diagnosed with severe anxiety and moderate depression, and it was so awful. I'd have to watch a show to fall asleep, because if I was just left with my thoughts, like I would just get in a panic attack.
Really?
So I'd like
Yeah.
watch a show, and then I would like drift to sleep, and I'd sleep for like 2 hours, and I'd wake
Really?
up in a panic attack. And like it was so bad, and I think the more I unpacked it, I think I realized that I was just really kind of, I don't know if I was told who I was, but I wasn't in the right environment, really.
Yeah.
I was in a space where I was expected to be someone, and it wasn't who I felt like I was, and I wasn't working towards the goals I wanted to work towards.
Yeah.
And I've always been a doer, so that causes a lot of friction when I'm
Yeah.
not like working towards things I want to work towards.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it came out of that, to start, and then I didn't take care of it, so it got worse and worse and worse until I couldn't ignore it. And I was really lucky that there were really good mental health services on campus that were free, and it was summer, so I didn't have to, it wasn't a long waiting list. I could go.
That's good.
And it was crazy. I'll never forget. I went to the therapy office, and I went and I was like, I think I really need to talk to someone. And I was pale as a ghost. Like it was bad. And the sweet receptionist, just going through protocol, was like, okay, well, we can get you in 2 weeks or whatever.
2 weeks.
And I was like, I don't think I can wait. And the therapist runs out, and she's like, I can talk to you right now.
Oh my God.
And at that time, it was really just like, I was going twice a week, and I was like, I just have to make it to Thursday.
Okay.
And then I was like, just to make it to Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then it got easier and easier and easier. And I got tools to, to make it through. And I think part of why I think it was such an environment thing is when I moved to LA, like I haven't had any problems since.
That's great.
I haven't had any flare-ups or anything.
That's so good. And I love that you're able to open up about that. And thank you for sharing too, because I think, anxiety is this big thing, that sometimes we don't talk enough about.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I lived in New York City, I was going through this constant, I guess, rat race of constantly working and then partying and then working and socializing and working and working. And at this time, so I'm 4 years sober now, but at this time it was like the peak of my addiction.
Yeah.
So all of that being involved was causing severe anxiety.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had not really understood what anxiety was because I had never experienced it.
Yeah.
So you hear about it, of course, but I had never personally experienced it. And I don't know if it was the same for you, but it really feels like you're dying. Like I was convinced.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. I was like, I'm convinced I'm having a heart attack.
I was the same way, where I knew kind of what it was. And I had panic attacks when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I just thought everybody had that.
Yeah.
And when it was explained to me, like, no, it's you're basically at least the way I experienced it, not a doctor.
Yeah.
But like your fight or flight, your adrenaline is kicking in as if you were being chased by a bear.
Wow.
But you're sitting in your bed.
Right.
And you're having these, and that's why it comes with a lot of thoughts of doom a lot of time, because you are experiencing these extreme high levels of adrenaline that you would if you were being chased by a bear, you know.
And exactly, and it feels like that. And then afterwards, whenever I'm trying to explain it to someone, and I'm like, I think I felt like my chest was going to come out of my body. Like I felt like I was dying.
Right.
And for the doctor to be like, it was anxiety. I was like, no, please let it be more than that, because I feel like it's not enough anymore. Like,
I know.
You know what I mean? But then no, it's just it's not just this trendy word. It's something that is very real, and a lot of people experience it. So I think being able to like talk about it and know that we have both experienced it, it's like there's a level of relatability to that as well.
And that it's serious. I think to what you said, like, I think that because when I was a kid, I don't think it was talked about enough.
Yeah.
And now I think it's talked about a lot, which is amazing. But I don't always know that we give it the seriousness that it deserves.
Yeah, exactly. That's what and that's what I feel as well, that the word almost became a trend in a way. Not in a bad way, because I do think that it's good that we're talking about it.
Right.
But it almost became this way of people being like, everything was anxiety.
Right.
Even just like stress or like a little bit of worry.
Yeah.
But like when someone's truly going through like a deep anxiety or deep depression, where it's like there is a level of that is harder to kind of work through.
Yeah.
If somebody was going through, like, I know you're not a doctor, as you said, but like if somebody was listening in and maybe they are dealing with like some mental health struggles, or maybe going through these waves of anxiety, what would be something that you would tell them?
Yeah. First of all, take it seriously, because it is serious.
Yeah.
And I think that if it would have been helpful if I would have gotten into talk therapy when I started to see little bits of a problem, and not when it got so bad that there was no choice. So I think that sometimes people feel silly going to a therapist, or they feel like I don't need it. And obviously there's a lot of financial things to it, which is a big problem.
Yeah.
But I think that like taking it seriously and not feeling like, oh, I can get through this on my own, I don't need this. Like it's never bad to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Hello.
Right. Yeah.
Meditation was really helpful to me.
Okay.
Guided meditation. Like that was I did medication for a little bit. I didn't personally like it very much,
Yeah.
just because I felt it was kind of like a numb blanket
Yeah.
rather than. But I know it works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm gonna figure out a way that I can, I can
deeper,
get through this.
yeah.
And so guided meditation was really helpful to me. And I don't think it's something that people often like associate with anxiety. So I think looking into it is, you got to figure out the toolbox that works for you. And that's the frustrating part about mental health a lot of the times is that it's not an antibiotic.
Yeah.
Even if you do
agree.
medication, once you dive into it, there's a bunch of different types and there's different experiences and what's your dosage. And it's not this like, oh, you have strep throat.
Yeah.
Like, here we go. You're good.
Exactly. I think that's what's something I love about also asking these questions on this show too, because every person's form of therapy has been more or less, it's a little different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like somebody might wake up every morning and do journaling. Another person, like for you, doing meditation. And then another person is hiking or something that's athletics. But it's still like getting out of your mind, right? Like every one of those forms of therapy is getting out of your mind. Or if it is going to a talk therapist, it's like talking to someone to get it out of here. Because I think the problem is like when we keep it here, it just manifests itself into something bigger.
Yeah.
And then that just creates this snowball effect of like anxiety,
100%.
depression. And, it will take time, because I think for me, it took several years to kind of grasp the coping mechanisms to be able to recognize when it was happening, like recognize, oh, this is another anxiety attack happening, or maybe a panic attack. And then recognizing the tools of how to like either at least get a little easier and not take it as hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, now I've gotten to a place where I'm like, you can work through it a little bit, and it's not always linear either, but finding ways to kind of make that work it's hard. I love that you're able to share that though, because you are such an inspiration for so many people, especially, and people going into adulthood and they're looking at you as a role model, and you being able to open up about that, and then they can find that relatability through you and your characters too, because I'm sure your characters, if they were real life human beings, they've also gone through all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So
it was fun. I used to do a lot of like college hack kind of content, and I always talked about like go to the therapy office, because it's not going to be free very long.
That's so true.
When it's paid for by the school.
Yeah.
Go. Do it.
You're like, please go for the school.
Please go. And then they'll hire more therapists if they have enough students. So go. I just think it's a good thing to go through.
I agree.
And I think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about talk therapy, and that, it's almost like life coaching or something where somebody's going to tell you why you're wrong or tell you why you're not good enough. And it's not, it's always like they kind of help you work through your own problems, and they help you on a path, and it was amazing for me. So.
I love it. Looking back, were there any specific societal pressures or maybe baggage, quote on, like a little plug in on the word, some societal pressures or baggage that maybe you feel at the time was really hard to go through, but it kind of shaped who you are now?
Oh yeah, I think with music it's so interesting because I grew up well enough off. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I was rags to riches story or anything like that. Also not riches. Yeah. So I'm like, how am I going to afford the next music video? But I think it's so interesting because I really appreciate there was a time when I very vividly, I did a program in college where we did a semester in LA. It was kind of study abroad, but it was kind of because LA culture is so different than Nashville culture.
Yes.
So I felt culture shock still. But I just driving here is so different, and I totaled my car and it was awful. And my parents were divorced, and my mom was kind of the only one that was there for me, and she had just gone back to flying. She's a flight attendant, and she was in training, and she was like, I can't leave. Like, I can't help you figure this out. Like, I'm sorry, but you kind of have to figure it out on your own. And I was seeing all these kids that their parents would buy them a house in Nashville and be like, well, it's an investment property. Like, you can just live there while you're in school. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that would be so easy.
Like, can someone please
I was living with
house?
cockroaches my senior year. Like, there'd be one in the shower, and I'd just be like, what am I going to do about it now?
Roommate? Is that
roommate?
you?
I said, you better start paying rent. You're not on the lease. Hey, it was crazy. But I do think that because I had to have this grit to make the things happen that I wanted to, because I had to find the money to make the music, to make the music videos, it gave me such a grit, and it taught me to really double down on myself, and it made it all a lot more valuable. It wasn't just like, oh, this is my parents' money that I did this project with, and I don't care that much about it. Like, I put all this money in this music video, you're gonna watch it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I do think it was a good balance, growing up.
That's good.
We never needed for anything, but also I did have to really rely on myself a lot of times, and I do think that benefited me in the long run.
That's
a lot.
good. No, I love that, and I appreciate you sharing that too. It's helpful for the people who don't feel like they already have all of the resources or all of the components to be able to make it. It's like you said before. It's like when people have all the reasons or the excuses as to not go for it.
Right.
But it's like, no, you can still do it. There are ways around it, right?
Yeah. And I know because that was me. I had the excuses.
Yeah,
and then one
the
day I gave them up.
cockroaches.
And we definitely had cockroaches. We definitely did.
I've been there. Tennessee, they have it in Tennessee.
They
as well,
got the cockroaches are in Tennessee.
Well, what's coming up next for you musically? Is it you said maybe going on tour? Is that something?
That would be the dream. I only have 7 songs,
okay.
so I'm not going to play them all twice.
That's great. You can play them twice for me. That's fine. I'll listen to all of them.
Yeah, so we just put out the latest single, Streetlights, which is kind of the kickoff of Era 2, which I'm so proud of.
So
that.
Exciting.
That song and that music video. And I've been working really hard on a lot of exciting things.
I'm so
excited.
Say
too much, but we just put the EP out, Postcards, in February, so I'm really proud of that. And,
okay.
So more of the same in way more exciting ways, I would say.
I'm so excited for you. I can't even explain how many. I'm like, please go watch all of your music videos because the representation, the love, the excitement, the creativity, the innovation. It's just like it's so exciting to see that, and I'm just like really looking forward to seeing your journey and seeing how all of it comes to life in more and more ways too.
I've always loved like a visual. Like I always loved music videos growing up, and my artistry is the visual element is so important to it, and it's I love that part of it.
I mean, assuming you grew up in the MTV area, right?
Yes.
Like waking up in the morning, putting on MTV. That was my life. Like I need the visual.
The visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would watch the VH1 Top 20 Music Video Countdown every Saturday morning.
Same.
I was obsessed.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, well, at the end of every episode, I do like silly questions, just to like kind of wrap it up.
Yeah.
We get a little baggage going. So, all right, here are my random questions for you. Would you rather never be able to stop sneezing or never be able to stop hiccuping?
I feel like sneezing. I couldn't even drive, so I guess I'll take hiccuping.
Yeah, that's true. If you could go,
I know. It'd be uncomfortable.
That's true. Yeah, because if you sneeze, you have to technically close your eyes.
Yeah,
that's dangerous.
How would you do that?
Like, could you do it one-eyed?
Some people do. I think they're liars. They do those I think there's 2 that I hate. People do teeny weeny sneezes.
You're like, no.
I don't know.
You're asking for attention.
Yeah. What's that about? And then like the what?
Like the ones where
chill.
it's like the dad sneeze. I feel like all dads have like this chill. And I'm like, can you relax?
Can you chill?
I know that was not necessary.
I know that didn't take all that to get out. I know we could be a little quieter about that. Happy medium.
You're right. A little happy medium. All right. Would you rather have hands? I don't even know why this visual is so funny to me. Would you rather have hands that play every instrument perfectly, but you can't hold anything?
Okay.
Or would you rather have a voice that sings perfectly, but you cannot talk?
I've never played an instrument perfectly, but I think I would rather sing everything because I think I do kind of just annoy people as my nature, and singing would only double down on that. And you could still communicate.
That's true.
You just have to sing everything.
Ooh,
you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Doesn't say you have to sing well.
Honestly, it's kind of like being in your own musical. Because that's how I say when I watch musicals. I'm like, they're literally singing
everything. Is that
everything.
episode of Buffy?
Yeah.
Did you watch Buffy?
I don't, but I know which episode you're talking about. I know which episode. We grew up on the same era, so
love Buffy.
What? Killing the vampire slayers.
Yes. And none of them were singers. It was the best part.
That's pretty good. That show was good. Maybe I should go watch that. I'm watching Vampire Diaries right now, so it is a throwback in an era. That's why I went
fall. We're getting into fall. It's almost fall.
It is.
It's vampire season.
It's pumpkin spice season.
Yeah.
Pumpkin spice.
You ready to feature? Oh my God.
Let's do it.
Put some reverb on these things. We're ready.
I'll just be the beatboxer behind the scenes, so we're good.
I'm into it.
Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
And
my
I
God.
appreciate just the space to have this kind of conversation.
No, same. And now it's like I can never be at a party and not just wave at you from the other side of the room. I'm literally going to come up and give you a big hug.
Yes, I love it. Hey there, my name's Scott Frenzel. You can find me on all platforms under Scott Frenzel, especially on YouTube. Go watch those music videos. I spent a lot of money on them.
Yay! Well, thank you so much. It was so good to hang out.
Thank you for having me. Oh my God, it was wonderful.
I know, it was so
flew
fun.
By.
And that's a wrap on this episode of She Comes With Baggage. If you love this conversation, please make sure to follow She Comes With Baggage on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more content and behind-the-scenes moments. And if you're tuning in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, please don't forget to leave a review. I love hearing from you, and your support helps to keep these conversations going. And just remember, if you are carrying any baggage, you're not alone, and we're all more alike than we might realize.